borders are closing and the military is moving in. They said it was for public safety. They said it was about migration, or smuggling, or national sovereignty. But across the world, borders aren't just closing, they're being militarized. In some places, the reasons are clear. In others, the silence is louder than the gunfire. And now, intelligence reports suggest it's not just about borders, it's about preparation. The new geopolitical landscape. In the first half of 2025, over a dozen international borders have been either partially sealed, heavily restricted, or reinforced with new military infrastructure. Not during war, not after a mass migration event, but preemptively in apparent anticipation of something not yet named. From Eastern Europe to West Africa, from the Middle East to South America, governments are deploying troops, installing surveillance towers, and building razor wire walls. In many cases, no official explanation is given. In others, officials speak of security concerns or foreign influence operations without evidence or detail. According to recent leaks from NATO and UN peacekeeping sources, what's emerging is not isolated action, but a pattern. Sudden border closures followed by military buildup, followed by sharp drops in diplomatic communication. These are not administrative border controls. They are the architecture of strategic separation. Why now? Experts point to for converging forces. An increase in transborder insurgency operations. The pressure of mass displacement from climate and conflict. Cyber warfare threats, targeting border infrastructure, and rising fear of state collapse or sudden regime change in key regions. But there's another theory more troubling, more difficult to verify, that these military deployments are not defensive at all. They are positioning for something more. In this report, we examined 5 regions where border closures and military buildups are no longer coincidences, they are warnings, and the line between control and conflict is becoming dangerously thin. 1. Poland, Belarus. 2. India, China. 3. Sahel region. 1. Poland, Belarus. The wall behind the trees and the dense Białego forest along the Poland-Belarus border. Something has changed. Not just the construction of a 5.5-meter steel barrier is completed in late 2024, but the presence of soldiers, hundreds of them stationed along a frontier that hasn't seen formal war in over 70 years. According to NATO internal briefings leaked in March 2025, Poland has positioned combat-ready battalions within 10 kilometers of the Belarusian border. With artillery units placed in concealed positions, these are not routine exercises. The troop presence has become permanent. Belarus, for its part, has announced joint border patrols with Russian military advisors. And intelligence gathered by German signal surveillance has detected encrypted Russian field command traffic inside Grodno and Brest regions as areas adjacent to the Polish frontier. The official story is migration. In 2021, Belarus was accused of orchestrating migrant flows to destabilize the EU, but today's buildup is no. It's longer about asylum seekers. Surveillance drones, electronic jamming units, and mobile anti-air systems have been spotted on both sides of the fence. Behind the scenes, leaked EU Defense Council minutes suggest Poland is preparing for the possibility of a spillover conflict. If Russia deepens its military presence in Belarus or launches hybrid operations against NATO's eastern flank, the trees still hide much. But under the canopy, preparations are no longer secret. The border is closed, fortified, and on edge. 2. India-China silence in the Himalayas and Ladakh. Along the line of actual control between India and China, the landscape is vast, frozen and now militarized. Since the deadly Galwan Valley clash in 2020, both nations have significantly reinforced their presence. But in 2025, the buildup has reached unprecedented intensity. According to satellite analysis from Maxor Technologies and leaked Indian Army logistics data, India has completed construction on 12 new advanced landing grounds and forward operating bases. At the same time, China has expanded its high-altitude missile sites, some disguised as civilian weather stations near Angari Prefecture. Though both countries continue to deny aggression, Intercepted communications published in a Canadian intelligence review reveal the deployment of long-range artillery and air defense systems along the LAC. These are not defensive weapons. They are meant for rapid response or preemptive strike capability. Troop levels have surged. Over 60,000 Indian soldiers are now stationed in Ladakh year-round, supported by high-mobility artillery rocket systems. While Chinese PLA units are conducting electronic warfare drills in nearby sectors, locals report that satellite phones and GPS devices are routinely jammed. Tourism is officially discouraged. Roads are blocked. Drone flights are intercepted. Civilian access to the area has dropped by 90% in the past year. The border is technically closed not by policy, but by presence. With both sides refusing to de-escalate and neither willing to lose strategic face, the danger of a limited border war remains very real. And when war begins at 16,000 feet, retreat is not an option. Only calculation or miscalculation decides what happens next. 3. Sahel region. Lines drawn in dust and fire. In the vast, arid corridor between Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, international borders have become militarized zones closed not only to civilians, but increasingly to humanitarian aid, foreign observers, and journalists. Following a wave of military coups in 2023 and 2024, the three countries declared a new mutual defense pact, the Alliance of Sahel States. Their shared aim: repel Western influence, combat jihadist insurgency, and reclaim national sovereignty. But intelligence from ECOWAS and French military sources tells another story. Since January 2025, the new Sahel Alliance has begun constructing fortified border camps, deploying long-range artillery, and repositioning drones received from both Russia and Iran. Satellite data shows convoys of armored vehicles traveling between Niamey and Gao-Cross borders officially closed for security reasons. KTOAS, once the regional stabilizing force, has warned of an emerging militarized bloc that may soon extend its operations into Chad or even northern Nigeria. Meanwhile, Wagner-affiliated security contractors have been spotted near key transit towns, suggesting external coordination with Russian interests. The borders in this region were once porous, shaped more by topography than politics. Today, they are fragmenting into defensive zones, cut off by sand berms, landmines, and checkpoints operated by military councils rather than governments. The concern is no longer just about insurgency, according to a leaked African Union assessment. There is now a real possibility of interstate conflict, either triggered by a cross-border operation or by preemptive strikes disguised as counterterrorism. This is not the failure of governance, it is its replacement by force. And in the Sahel, where dust swallows roads and laws negotiated at the barrel of a rifle, the border no longer means safety, it means control. FOURUS, Mexico. Militarized immigration, a strategic deterrence. Along the southern U.S. border, what began as immigration control has evolved into something far more complex. Since late 2024, a growing number of states including Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico have deployed National Guard units, surveillance drones, and ground sensors in what was officially called Operation Lone Star Expansion. But internal documents leaked from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security reveal a broader shift. Military planners are now mapping permanent forward operating stations for border rapid response, complete with live fire zones and direct cyber integration with NORT systems. The stated reason is a rise in illegal crossings and cartel violence. However, joint exercises with U.S. Army units in March 2025 included simulated scenarios involving non-state armed incursions, across the border language typically used in military threat planning, not law enforcement. Mexico has responded uneasily. While diplomatic statements express cooperation, leaked Mexican military suggests concern over U.S. troop concentrations, particularly in areas overlapping with cartel-controlled territories in Tamaulipas and Sonora. President Obrador's administration has increased the deployment of Mexican army units near border towns under the pretext of counter-narcotics. In private, however, Mexican officials are reportedly worried about unilateral U.S. actions, including the potential for cross-border strikes against cartel figures. A 2025 Pentagon contingency report leaked by anonymous sources references the possibility of surgical operations beyond the border zone in the event of large-scale cartel attacks on U.S. personnel. The physical border is closed, but the military posture suggests something more than policing: strategic, coordinated, and prepared for escalation. In this desert frontier, law enforcement has blurred into pre-conflict positioning. 5. Israel-Lebanon, the line that no longer holds. Since late 2023, the Israel-Lebanon border has seen a slow-burning escalation that now threatens to erupt into full-scale war. Skirmishes between the Israeli Defense Forces and Hezbollah fighters, once sporadic, have become weekly. But it's what's happening behind the scenes that has regional analysts alarmed. Satellite images from January 2025 show the IDF building reinforced underground logistics corridors, anti-tunnel sensors, and artillery fire bases within 5 kilometers of the Lebanese border. At the same time, Lebanon has reported the expansion of Hezbollah-controlled civilian zones, where rocket launchers and drone arrays have been covertly embedded. Leaked IDF planning documents published briefly on an encrypted intelligence forum describe a strategy called Iron Sweep, involving a 2-stage rapid incursion and encirclement of southern Lebanese towns in the event of Hezbollah launching a mass missile barrage. Hezbollah's preparation has not been idle. Iranian-made drones have been deployed for high-altitude reconnaissance. An intercepted comm suggests a forward supply network stretching through Syria is already in place. Cyber attacks on Israeli power infrastructure in March 2025 were attributed to Hezbollah-aligned units. Based on forensic packet traces, the border is technically sealed, but in practice, it is a shared combat zone, paused only by timing, not by peace. UNIFIL peacekeepers have been reduced to observers, unable to stop nightly clashes or equipment movements. Both sides are now positioned. Neither seeks immediate war, yet neither appears willing to retreat. If either interprets the next attack as existential, total war could follow within hours. In the hills of northern Galilee and southern Lebanon, the border doesn't divide nations anymore, it divides intentions, and it may not hold much longer. Walls that whisper of war, from the Sahel to the Rio Grande, from the Himalayas to the forests of Eastern Europe, a disturbing pattern is emerging. Borders are no longer just national lines, they are becoming launch pads. What began as routine militarization counterinsurgency, smuggling control, migration containment has evolved into silent mobilization. Barriers are being built not to separate people, but to position power. Troops are being deployed not just to defend, but to prepare. Each of the cases we've examined reveals more than policy shifts. They reveal intent. When borders close, it sends a message. When they're sealed with troops, radars, and electronic warfare systems, the message is no longer diplomatic. It's strategic. And often, it's preemptive. Why the sudden global alignment? Analysts point to destabilization, climate displacement, economic shockwaves, and multipolar tensions. But the deeper cause is simple. States no longer trust their neighbors. And in this atmosphere of distrust, the border becomes both a shield and a trigger. If history teaches anything, it's that the most dangerous conflicts don't start in capitals. They start on the margins at the overlooked checkpoints, in the unmapped hills, under the silence of surveillance drones. Right now, those margins are hardening. And as the world watches other headlines, these closed borders whisper a warning. The next war may not begin with a declaration. It may begin with a gate that never reopens. Pay attention, not to the war that has started, but to the one quietly getting into position